So I'm Nikki Shure. I'm an associate professor in economics at University College London. And that means essentially that I, on the one hand, teach undergraduate students who are doing a degree in social sciences, and I teach them economics courses. So I teach economics of public policy and economics of developing countries, which are two courses that are trying to use data and research to understand how policy is made, essentially. And then in the rest of my time at work, when I'm not teaching or advising students on their dissertations, I'm doing my own research. And most of my research is about education and the labor market, very broadly speaking. So I'm interested in understanding how the educational decisions and careers that people go through, the things they study, what kind of an impact that has later on in the labor market for their lives. And what I mean by that is how much money they earn, what kind of jobs they go into, and basically what people's careers look like based on the types of education they pursue. I would say one of the greatest things about being an academic is there is no real average day. It's very mixed, which is something that I like a lot. So when it's term time and there's courses, it's a little bit more structured in the sense that I know, okay, I have one lecture that I give every week on a Thursday afternoon, one on a Friday morning, which is always a fun thing to do. But yeah, so basically during the term, I would have lectures. I meet with students during office hours because sometimes people want to, students want to talk about things that maybe they didn't understand in the lecture, or specific things from papers or readings. I assign different chapters of textbooks or short articles that people have written. So I meet a lot with students, which I think is a really fun thing to do, to talk to people, see what their ideas are. UCL is a really international university, so we have students from basically all over the world, and that's also really interesting. So if I'm teaching something about tax policy in the UK, it's really interesting to hear how does that work in China or Germany or Chile. And so that's also a really cool part of the day. But yeah, so basically I'm preparing lectures, so that might mean making lecture slides, practicing, and then the rest of the time, I'm often working with data sets. So I work a lot with really large data sets. I'm trying to do different types of analysis, figure out relationships between basically different variables and data sets. Of, maybe looking at, if you study science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, what kind of wages are you earning later on in the labor market? So I spend a lot of time in front of a computer running models. And then I spend a lot of time also writing, because I'm doing this research and I want people to read it. So I'm writing articles that are going to get published in academic journals. And I also try and spend time writing blog posts or other kind of shorter versions of this that actual people who are not academics will read, because most people probably are not going to read the academic articles that I write. They're pretty long, they're pretty technical. And so I'm trying to think about ways to publicize the results via journalists or other people in the media, so that people can read about it in the newspaper. I think the best bit about my work is being able to talk to policymakers and advise them. So that's a really unique thing, I think, also about being in the UK, that there's very close relationships between the people who are making decisions about how to spend government money and what kind of policy should be in place, and academics. So I think going to talk to people in the ministry, high up permanent secretaries, maybe not the actual minister, is a really unique and fun experience to be able to say, okay, I've done this analysis and here's what my results show, and let me tell you why I think this matters and how this is going to impact people's lives. So I think if you're interested in economics, it's really important to also pursue, think about maths and computer programming, because actually those are really important skills in being an economist. It's quite a technical field, and I don't think that's the most important skill. I think being curious about the economy and the world is really important. So reading newspapers, thinking about how different policies might impact people, and then really pursuing maths courses and not being afraid to go for the really difficult statistics, mathematical courses. Learning different types of computer programming, I think, is also a great step to try and become an economist. But I think, understanding that link between theory and how models might work in real life, and then thinking about how you can test that with data, is really important. I'm kind of one of those weird people that when I was 17, I took basically advanced placement economics, so kind of like A-level economics. And it was the first time I had ever really engaged with that subject. I mean, I had done Model UN, which is another great way, I think, to think about how economic policy impacts a lot of people's lives. And so when I took this course, I realized I just found it really fascinating. Like the people had come up with these models to think about how markets work and how people interact. And yeah, I like that it has this very kind of macro level. We're thinking about how the world works, but ultimately it's all about individuals interacting with each other and markets. And so I decided when I went to university that I would just keep studying it, and realized I really liked it. And the further I got into it and realized that there's different specializations that people are working on, and specifically the stuff that I do, which is using really big data sets that follow people over time to try and understand how their life decisions, basically what kind of consequences that has for them. Yeah, I just got more and more interested in it and decided to do a PhD, which is basically first a 2-year master's degree where you do coursework and get more skills, and then 3 years of additional research where you're writing your own dissertation, presenting it to people. And that's, yeah, I just kind of never looked back.